Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. Today, guys, we're going to be going over 5 authors that are new to me that I'm very excited to read. But first, we need to go over the answer for the Comedy with Colin segment from my top 10 Stephen King books video, which if you guys have not seen yet, I will link right here. So the joke from the Comedy with Colin segment last video was, what do a tick and the Eiffel Tower have in common? The answer? They're both parasites. Alrighty, guys, let's move on to this list. The first author on this list is going to be H.P. Lovecraft. Now, Lovecraft was an inspiration for tons of authors that are still writing today, and he heavily influenced the genres of science fiction and fantasy with his wild imagination. Lovecraft did not get a lot of recognition when he was still alive for his work, which is very unfortunate. But luckily for us, there was a group of writers that called themselves the Lovecraft Circle that fought to kind of keep his works alive for him after his unfortunate passing. And it's lucky for us that they did that because I think that, the inspiration that his work has had on fiction and more specifically like science fantasy and horror is undeniable. Now, when I say Lovecraft is new to me, that's kind of bending the truth just a little bit. Now, I have read, well, I listened to one Lovecraft story. This was like 2 years ago. I listened to The Shadow over Innsmouth, and it was one of the creepiest and most atmospheric things that I've ever listened to. However, that is the only Lovecraft that I have experienced so far. Now, I own this H.P. Lovecraft collection of works that I got from Barnes & Noble. So I have 2 in mind that I want to start with. One of them would be The Call of Cthulhu, and the other would be The Color Out of Space. These 2 I just kind of, have always had in my mind because they're some of his most famous stories that just I hear about a lot. But if you guys have read a lot of Lovecraft and you have a better jumping in point for him that you think I would enjoy, please let me know. Next up on this list, guys, is going to be Robert McCammon. Now, one of my biggest inspirations for getting into Stephen King early on was actually Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews. And, if you guys are on BookTube, that's probably not unlike many of you. Now, having followed Mike over the past couple of years, and hearing a lot of people recommend Robert McCammon to him because he likes Stephen King has really piqued my interest in McCammon. Now, Mike released a fantastic review of a book called Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, which I will link in the description of this video. Go check Mike out if you haven't done that yet. McCammon has written in multiple genres, including horror, historical fiction, and just kind of under the umbrella of speculative fiction. And one thing that excites me a lot about McCammon is that he's written a lot of books. So don't quote me on this exactly, but I'm pretty sure that he's written close to 30 novels. And when I find a new author that has such a deep body of work like that, and I enjoy the first book or 2 that I try from them, it really makes me excited because then I can kind of deep dive and experience the different levels of their writing. And with McCammon, he has multiple genres that he writes in, so I'd be interested to try like his more slice of life stuff and his science fantasy-ish type stuff as well. Now, the only book that I own by McCammon is Swan Song. I purchased this when it was on a deal, like on my Kindle. So I bought this because it garners a lot of comparisons to The Stand by Stephen King, which you guys know I love. And Swan Song is kind of McCammon's stab at the post-apocalyptic America with, some supernatural and some horror elements in it, which sounded really appealing to me. But if you guys have read a lot of McCammon and you think, that he's written something else that I might enjoy, definitely let me know down in the comments where you think I should start. Next up on this list, guys, is going to be Cormac McCarthy. Now, Cormac McCarthy is an author that I know is fairly unconventional in his writing style, and I know that that doesn't work for everybody. Like, for example, apparently he believes in kind of the use of like simple declarative sentences and doesn't use commas, doesn't use quotation marks around his dialogue. So I have never experienced writing like that, but I'm very intrigued by how he is going to be able to hold my attention and draw me into his story using these strange techniques. Um, because his works are highly touted as being, incredible. He's a master storyteller. He's got these, kind of vicious themes of violence and kind of doesn't hold back. And, I've always kind of wondered how he's able to do that in this unconventional writing style. Now, although I've never read any McCarthy yet, recently my wife and I actually just watched No Country for Old Men, which I loved. If his works, his novels, are able to generate any of the tension and the bleakness that that movie was able to generate, I think I'm going to be a huge fan of McCarthy. Now, I own two McCarthy books I picked up at Barnes and Noble. I picked up The Road and I picked up Blood Meridian just to kind of have them on hand for whenever I'm ready to start McCarthy. And I'm a member of a couple of Discords, and I kind of posed the question, where do you guys think I should start with McCarthy? And the general consensus seemed to be The Road. And a lot of people said The Road, but take it slow. Don't rush your way through it. So I think that that is where I plan on starting for now. But let me know some of McCarthy's favorite works of your guys down in the comments, and I will definitely check those out if I'm a fan of The Road. Fourth on this list, guys, is going to be Clive Barker. Now, I don't really know much about Clive Barker at all. So I was doing a little bit of research on Wikipedia before making this video, and he seems like an extremely interesting human being. He produces artwork in many different mediums. Apparently, he does a lot of his own work for his novels, his visual artwork. He's done a lot of work in film with movies like The Hellraiser, which is the only one that I can think of right now. And he's done a lot of work in TV. So he writes typically, I think, in the genres of like dark fantasy and horror, which are genres that I already know that I enjoy. And I've heard his name thrown around a lot in these kind of circles. And I've always kind of in the back of my mind been like, I need to try some Clive Barker at some point. So I don't currently own any of Clive Barker's works, but when I was doing a little bit of Wikipedia research before making this video, one of his works that stuck out to me that I think I'm probably going to start with is called Weave World. Now, this book was nominated for the best novel in the 1988 World Fantasy Awards, and it's allegedly about a fantasy world that's hidden in a tapestry in order to protect it from the natural world. That seemed like a really cool idea for me. And so that's where I decided to maybe jump in with Barker. But if you guys have read a lot of Barker, like I said, I don't really know much about him at all. If you think there's a better place to start with Barker's works, please let me know in the comments because he's been an author that's been very interesting to me for a while now, but I've just not really done the research to kind of know where to jump in with him. The last author on today's list is going to be Steven Erikson. Now, if you've been a fantasy booktube consumer in any capacity over the last couple of years, it's been nearly impossible to not hear about people talking about the Malazan Book of the Fallen. If you don't know, the Malazan Book of the Fallen is Steven Erikson's 10-book series. This is his main body of work. He has also written some novellas in the Malazan world. I believe he's also finished a prequel series and is in the process of finishing a sequel series. But you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, I have not read any Erikson yet. Now, I mentioned in my 5 series that I'm going to be starting a continuing video that I will be starting the first book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, The Gardens of the Moon, at some point this year. And some of the things that I'm excited about for Erikson's writing is that, I've heard from many people here on YouTube and in just my general reading about the Malazan series that Erikson bases a lot of his work around themes, which I think is super cool and super interesting. And some of the themes that I've heard he handles beautifully are grief, the human condition, and compassion. And he explores these themes through his world, through his characters. One of the things that I was reading on Wikipedia was that him and his collaborative partner, Ian C. Esselmont, decided early on that 2 things they were going to leave out of their world and their culture was sexism and the idea of gender roles in society. So I when I read about that, I thought that was really cool to see how a world that's never experienced or had to fight against sexism or gender roles in society, how that world would look, what that world would play out as. Because, in the natural world today, things like sexism and gender roles in society are still a problem that we need to deal with, but they are getting better. And the thing is, to see a society that's never had to fight back against any of that would be really, really cool. So I am really excited to dip into the Malazan Book of the Fallen at some point. If there's some people out there that haven't started it yet and might want to try to get some kind of read along together with Malazan, let me know in the comments, because I think that would be really cool. And these books, I think, are going to be great for discussion. All right, guys. Well, there are 5 authors that are new to me that I'm very excited to try. Now it's time for everybody's favorite segment on the channel, Comedy with Colin. Today's joke, guys, is going to be, what do you call a girl in the middle of a tennis court? If you think you know the answer, drop it down in the comments. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Any support is tremendously appreciated. Thanks again for stopping by today, guys, and spending some time here. And remember, you are always welcome in Colin's Corner.